What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is going to dive into self-love and self-acceptance as your key for actually getting what you want in life and becoming a happier version of yourself. I've had some experience. I've had a lot of experience with, overcoming challenges with a lack of self-love or being super hard on myself, and I think a lot of people can relate to the concept of struggling to actually give yourself enough credit and be a safe space for yourself, to love yourself unconditionally before everything else. And I've come to realize, especially in the recent past, that not showing yourself love and compassion and actually being kind to yourself can be a massive bottleneck for actually reaching newer levels of happiness, of joy, of ease in life. Because when you don't show yourself self-love and you don't have compassion for yourself, you are your own biggest block that is keeping you from receiving good things in life, because you don't think that you deserve it. You don't think you're worthy of it, or you think there's some fundamental problem with you that is keeping you from actually living a life of ease. And this is a very common thing for a lot of people, and it needs to be talked about. So that is what I'm here to do today. So if you're tuning in, welcome, and let's get into it. Welcome to the Organic Podcast. I'm your host, Reagan, mechanical engineer, lifelong athlete, and recovered overachiever, here to empower you to pursue your highest potential and live freely as your happiest, most organic self. Every week, we'll dive into topics ranging from personal growth, mindset hacks, psychology, and a blend of science and spirituality to give you all the tools you need to stop living on autopilot and start creating a life of freedom, meaning, and fulfillment as your most organic self. If you're ready to become the best version of yourself, then let's plant those seeds and grow. If self-love is a foreign concept to you, then buckle in for this podcast, because I'm basically just saying it has been a foreign concept for me too for a lot of my life. I think a lot of overachievers have this air of never being good enough, of always being so hard on themselves, and this fear of, if they ever do actually just meet themselves where they're at and accept themselves for exactly as they are, or show themselves love and compassion as the exact version of themselves that they are right now, you put yourself at risk of not actually achieving these things or living up to these highest of high standards that keeps you as this image of yourself that you believe that you have to be in order to fit into society or please some other people, like pleasing your parents or things like that. I have definitely had resistance to feeling like I can't just accept myself where I'm at. I can't just be happy with who I am because I have all of these higher standards. I should be meeting all of these things. I should be in a better place. I should be doing more. I should. When the shoulds come into it, that is when you might have a problem with actually having the ability to understand that where you're at right now is just as good as where you are going in terms of how worthy you are as a person, like your inherent value. Inherent value is exactly what it is, inherent. It's not earned. Every single human being is born into this world with value. You don't ever go and tell a child, you're worthless, you mean nothing unless you get straight A's and whatever. You don't tell a young kid that, right? We start to learn these things and learn these patterns of standards to live up to and achievements to reach when we are growing up, when we're going through school, when we have opportunities to prove ourselves, and therefore be conditioned to subconsciously or consciously receive more love for doing good things and less love for quote-unquote not being good enough, or less attention, fill in the blank, whatever you want to say. So when we learn this as kids, it makes it really hard for especially high-achieving kids when they grow into adulthood to get to a point where they can actually just understand that loving themselves and accepting themselves is not something that is just earned by, once I finally get all these projects done, once I finally get to this status in my career, once I finally get to do all of these things that I said I was going to do, that means I can actually relax and love myself. This is such a big block when it comes to especially making positive change in your life, which when I say making change in your life, I'm speaking to the general overall growth and evolution that hopefully every person is going through throughout their whole lives, learning, growing, improving themselves from the place of love and wanting to experience life to a happier degree or a greater degree every single day. That's the goal. The goal of growth is not to be here's 5 steps to changing your whole life. Here's 5 steps to becoming a whole new human being and revamping all of your habits. Growth is just the general evolution that we all are hopefully experiencing, learning more and living more day to day to day. So to this point of growth, when we learn all of these habits and grow into adulthood with the idea that doing is the basis for earning a sense of worth, which quote unquote like keeps your place in society and keeps you as a valued member of society in this like tribe idea in your mind, because as we know with our primal brains are wired for community, as like community coincides with survival for our brains on a biological scale. So when we learn that we are more accepted by the community for doing more things and being successful, and we understand that our worth comes from the doing on the scale of how other people perceive us, then we learn that, okay, in order for me to survive, I need to be able to do so much to be perfect, to be an overachiever and perform well in order to actually be seen as someone who cares about contributing to society and living up to these standards that we have all subconsciously agreed to or consciously agreed to as a society. Now, this used to serve us when we lived in tribes of 50 to 100 people, where we actually knew everyone that we were living with, and we were obviously living like we were literally in tribes. But now the tribal setting speaks to all of society, not even just especially your family, your parents, people who have a more potent impact on you, but it also speaks to all of society. And when you think about how skewed that scale is compared to how our brains have been designed to work through this tribal sense for the sense of approval and safety versus how it's working today, it's very clear to see that although our brains were wired for survival, the setting in which we live in is so different than the setting in which our brains were wired and programmed. Therefore, we need to actually make conscious effort to address this and change our brains and to cater our thoughts towards positivity, towards self-acceptance, and having an overall awareness of the fact that our worth does not come from doing. Your worth does not come from how much you do. Think about it. Would you ever say to someone who might be in a rough spot in life, who might not have, the normal things that people see as quote unquote successful in society, would you ever tell them, wow, you are worthless because you didn't, get a degree or finish high school or whatever? You would never say to someone who's in a tough spot in life, wow, you are worthless and everything you do doesn't matter, it means nothing. But you would never say that to anyone else, right? And I hope no one would ever say that to anyone else in general. And yet we find ourselves talking to ourselves like that. Guys, you do not even want to know, I have spoken to myself the most heinous of things. And it comes from a place inside of me that is not true to the essence of my soul. I know it comes from a place of ego. I know it comes from a place of learned conditioning. Because it is literally this sense of an adapted survival instinct of self-hatred to keep myself in this little box of I cannot truly love myself and accept myself or show myself any type of compassion unless I'm hitting these goals, unless I'm hitting these metrics, and unless I'm proving to myself through my doing that I'm good enough. Because the backwards thing about this is that when your brain goes based on the way that it's programmed, you will learn and actually start to ingrain that if you don't think like that, if you aren't hard on yourself, then that could mean that your survival is at risk, that it's a threat. And another layer, as I talk about in pretty much every episode, anything that is in the unknown is in the danger zone to your brain, because what is outside your realm of awareness and the things that you are used to, including the ways that you think and the way that you go about your life, or even the way you see yourself, if anything is outside of your normal comfort zone of what you're used to, it is seen as a threat, because anything that is unknown could cause you death back again in the primal days. Thank you so much to our caveman brains for contributing to so much of our suffering, but not to play in the victim mentality, because you don't actually need to be a victim to your brain. You just need to understand how it works. And that is why I'm here sitting in front of this microphone telling you about it. So, bringing it back, circling back, as we love to say on Teams calls. Ew, I don't even say that on Teams calls, but I just see memes about it. Anyways, circling back to my point. When we evolve this way, it is like we grow our own internal voice that is our protector in a sense. Our ego essentially forms to keep us safe from outside threats. And when we learn that we have to do something in order to be considered good enough and acceptable and worthy of love, our ego learns, okay, in order to keep us safe and accepted, I can only accept myself when I am doing so much, when I am being this high performer, when I am being an overachiever, and when I am receiving acknowledgement for what I do. And anything outside of that is something that I am not familiar with, I am not comfortable with, and something that I do not have proof of the fact that it can keep me safe. Therefore, your ego will cling onto this idea that you can't show yourself love, you can't show yourself compassion, and you can't be kind to yourself unless you're hitting these metrics. Now, where we take a step back from this is we realize, okay, maybe this served us as a kid. As backward as it sounds, maybe it served us when we were young. It is how we learned. It is how our brains learned. It's the programming that we got. We can't change it. We can't change exactly what circumstances happened to us. We can't go in the past, right? But what can you actually control? What can you change? You can change how you think about it now and your level of awareness when it comes to what actually formed these beliefs that make you think that you are not worthy, deserving, good enough, etc., to give yourself that sense of self-love. You can change your thoughts. You can change your beliefs. Once you take a step back and realize that you are not your thoughts, you realize that all of these terrible things you think about yourself are not as powerful as they think, nor are they as cemented or factual as you think they are. I've talked about this in other episodes when it comes to reprogramming your brain or reprogramming certain thoughts. All it takes is you to have awareness of it and then actively question it. But this is something that is so hard to break out of, especially when you've been in such a loop of like the self-hatred, of the self-criticism, of just being super hard on yourself all the time, because that is what is safe to you. That is what's in your comfort zone. That's what you're used to. So it sounds ironic because obviously wouldn't everyone want to have self-love? Wouldn't everyone want to be nice to themselves? Everyone should speak to themselves kindly. Yes, of course. But when you actually get to thinking what it takes to actually do that, you consciously, as like your human mind, you might want that for yourself, but subconsciously and within your ego, that they do not want that for you. They don't want that for you because they think that they are keeping you safe. Your ego thinks it is keeping you safe by keeping you from loving yourself. And this is the crux of the issue when it comes to self-love. Because when you learn this, until someone points out to you this pattern that has happened to you, it is very hard to change something that you are not even aware of. So hopefully even me just explaining all of this, it helps at least someone, because I had to learn this. I had to hear this from the voice of someone else in order for me to realize and recognize how my overachieverism, say that 10 times fast, but my overachiever tendencies and my lack of ability to appreciate myself was actually leading me to a place that I did not want to be, where I was just being so hard on myself. It was honestly one of the biggest mirrors reflected back to me in my behavior when I would literally be so hard on myself for like getting homework questions wrong or not being able to get through like an online homework assignment where you had to like like stupid stuff where you had to get a certain answer in order to get to like the next problem. Just small things like that, especially related to school or athletics. If I had a bad game, if I couldn't shoot for a second, like guys, you don't even want to know the shit that I would say to myself. Like I would literally say that I'm just like a worthless piece of shit. Like literally just tell myself that and say it with such conviction for things that do not warrant that kind of response. And as I said before, when we're so hard on ourselves, when you reflect on the shit that you say to yourself, you would never, ever, ever say that to other people. You would never say it to other people. I would never, ever tell someone else, wow, you're a worthless piece of shit. I would never, ever say that. And yet, I will say it to myself when I'm not meeting these artificial standards that I have learned as my baseline should be, like the goals that I need to meet. Just because I think that in punishing myself and shaming myself and being full of self-hatred, I'm keeping myself safe. That's what part of my ego brain thinks. That is backwards. And when it comes to thought processes and thought patterns that are so deeply ingrained in you from years and years and years of your life, it does not happen overnight. Like changing your brain does not happen overnight. It really doesn't. It happens over a much longer span. It happens over a span of like months, if not longer than that. But becoming aware of these thoughts and these patterns and actively choosing to question them are the first steps that you need in order to have the catalyst to actually being able to foster a sense of self-love and a high sense of self-worth, especially when you have been someone who has been a high overachiever your whole life and bases your entire identity on what you do and how well you do it. I cannot emphasize enough how much this was an integral part of my life, my entire identity. High school, I had so many achievements. I had so many awards. Like, and I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I'm not saying that to be like, oh, look at me. But especially in sports and overlapping like student athlete awards, I was very highly recognized. And part of why COVID messed me up so bad, I mean, obviously I know it's going to sound like first world problems, blah, 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 like, COVID was not good for anyone. And I know that it was much worse for other people. And that is not to say that my experience is any less valid, because anyone going through a change of circumstances is warranted to be able to like have their own experience of emotions. Like, whatever. I don't think anyone's going to give me shit for that. But anyways, part of why COVID broke me so bad and made me so miserable was because my whole sense of self-worth and identity was based on the achievements and awards that I was getting at the end of my senior year. And what happened was all of these award ceremonies that I had watched from the time that I was a freshman to a senior, the people that I had looked up to in grades above me, who I saw being recognized for their leadership awards, their student athlete awards, like the highest achieving athlete in their grade. Like, I remember every single person in the classes before me who got these awards. I just said rewards. But I remember the people who got these awards for the most part. Like, it leaves an imprint because I was like, damn, I want to be like that person. Like, I want to prove myself. I know that I'm capable of it. I know that I'm whatever. Like, I want to have that. And it also was so integral to how I saw myself to be able to be high achieving like that. So when COVID came around and I got a leadership award in every single sport that I was a part of, and also like recognition for being like top student athlete and top athlete in my grade, and all I got was a bunch of batted eyelashes and like Facebook posts rather than award ceremonies that I was like thought this would be like the integral moment for me to like collect all of this validation essentially for my personality and my sense of self and my identity. When that happened, I was like, oh, sick, cool. So everything that I just worked my ass off for 4 years means absolutely nothing. No one cares. And like, who even am I? Like, obviously it wasn't actually that intense to be like questioning my whole identity, but part of me certainly was like, what the fuck is even going on? Because why did I just work so hard for that? Like, the whole point of that was obviously to do it for myself, but also because it was like integral to how I saw myself, to have other people also recognize that like, look, I'm contributing, like I'm a worthy person, like I can do all these good things, like I can be high achieving, I can perform at high levels, like look guys, accept me, approve of me. Like, that's literally where the background programming that was going on in my brain came from. Like, that was the inner dialogue, whether I realized it or not, to the extent that I now, looking back, kind of can understand it. So it was so hard for me because this sense of identity was completely like flipped over, and it shook me to my fucking core. I think it shook every single overachiever who was waiting for, not even just overachiever, but anyone who was especially waiting for recognition for hard work they had put in for years and years, and how much like time and effort they put into things that you get recognition for at the culmination of your high school career, which is, never mind like just your high school career, like that's the culmination of like all of your public schooling, or like if you go to public school, whatever. But anyways, for all of that to just be like swept away and essentially have everyone just say like, I don't really give a shit, no one fucking cares, and have everything go on to the next class, it's just a terrible feeling. And I bring that back to self-love and the sense of overachievership because I know what it's like to base your whole identity off of what you do. I really, really do. I really do. And I think to myself, how am I different now than I was back then? It's carried on into college as well. The sense of doing and overachieving and like doing all these things and being good at it. Like, it wasn't even like it came from this place of ego where it's like, oh my God, I'm so good at this shit. It came from this place of like, if I'm not good at my classes and sports and what I do, I'm worth nothing. I am worth nothing if I don't do that. So I have to do well, because if I don't, then I don't know what the fuck to do with myself. And like, just that kind of mentality and how hard I push myself, and just like I ran myself into the freaking ground, guys. I ran myself into the goddamn ground. And that is what shook me awake from the sense of like being so hard on myself. And I distinctly remember when I first came across Monica and I first got into this whole world of awareness and I started listening to more podcasts. Sorry, I'm like half burping right now. Oh my God, hold on. Okay, got water. But when I started listening to her podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like absolute crap. It feels like shit to have your whole worldview kind of like put into question. It doesn't feel good to have someone put a magnifying glass on thoughts and patterns and beliefs that you've held your whole life that aren't actually serving you, and it doesn't feel good to feel like you have to change them, because no one actually really wants to get out of their comfort zone. That's why you have to actively move past the resistance and the friction that is there between you actually moving forward through it. It takes effort. It takes time. And because of that, it's why so many people sit in their comfort zone for so long, even when it doesn't serve them. Even when on an objective level, it does not serve them at all. They sit there because it's what they're used to. And you settle into these mental grooves, as I think I got that from James Clear in Atomic Habits. One of his things talks about how people get into these mental grooves where like they don't even question the thoughts that they carry or the beliefs that they have, because that's just what they're used to. And I had been one of those people. It doesn't make me better than anyone else that I'm more aware of how to get out of the comfort zone now. It just means that it takes a certain level of awareness and a catalyst to actually move past the static friction to make it into kinetic friction and actually move the block forward of your life, so you can start living as your most organic self, as your happiest self, and not be living based on these old programs and belief systems or thoughts that don't serve you. And this all relates back to self-love and showing yourself kindness, because the things that keep you from showing yourself self-love and kindness are often the sense of like, my worth is earned. My worth is not inherent. I cannot be kind to myself unless, or this sense of should. But I'm here to tell you, all of the shoulds, all of the things you think you need to do to earn a sense of self-worth, to like earn your value, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's not real. It's not real. And it's based on programming that you have learned through being conditioned that doesn't necessarily serve you. My freaking laptop just went blank, and I was like, if this thing records or deletes this entire freaking episode, I'm going to have an aneurysm. But anyways, self-love, the only thing keeping you from it is this idea that it's not already something that you can just have for existing. So many of us think we have to be doing. But I think that our society is actually turning the table. I hope so, but I really think that the tables are starting to turn, and more people are starting to realize that, wow, we cannot just constantly be productive all the time. We are losing our sense of humanity. We are losing our connection to ourselves, and we are losing the sense of what it means to actually be a human being who can just exist, who can just enjoy life, who can just have pleasure. It's like we are so wired for negativity because our brain is wired to anticipate threats that we can't even, we wouldn't even know what a good, happy, peaceful life would look like if it was staring us in the freaking face. Because we'd be like, ew, what is that? I don't know what that is. What do you mean I can love myself? If you actually showed yourself love and compassion and understand what that feels like, not just what you think it is, like what does it feel like? Think about how you love other people, how you love other things, like even your freaking cat. Like how much love do you show to that little freaking fluff ball if you have a cat or any animal? But just think about how much love you show to other things or other people. Why would you not show that to yourself? You are the only person who you are going to have a relationship with for your whole entire life, guaranteed. Like guaranteed. It's such an important thing to foster a sense of connection within the self, connection and bridging the gap between the emotional voice within you, like what people call your inner child, the ego voice in you, and the higher guidance that we all have from our souls that kind of guide us in the direction of where we are meant to be living. And we find emotional dissonance and a lack of self-love when we are not actually living fully aligned with the path and the thoughts that we are meant to be on and be having in order to be living this sense of like full expression of self and mostly identified with the soulful version of ourselves, living our happiest, best lives. Like we experience the friction and emotional dissonance because we are out of alignment. And a lack of self-love, a lack of self-appreciation is a sign that that area of your life is not in alignment. Because when you're living as your most organic self, your most raw, authentic, vulnerable, like fully expressed, happiest, most embodied self, like think of it as your best self, when you're living like that, do you say to yourself, I am worthless unless I'm working X amount of hours a week. I am worthless unless I do XYZ thing. or I should be doing more? Do you wake up every day questioning whether or not you actually belong, like at what job you're at? Do you question anything good that comes your way because you think you don't deserve it? No, when you're living your happiest self, when you are living so in line with your soul's calling, you don't question that. You don't ask yourself, oh my God, do I deserve this? Am I meant for this? But I can't have this. Other people can have it. Like, no, I can't show myself self-love. I cannot be just worthy of this. Like, I have to earn this somehow. And that's the whole backwards trick. That's the whole backwards trick of all of this. It's like you get so much value. Like, you get all of the things that you could ever possibly desire once you actually realize that you don't need to earn it. Like, it's so backwards. It's so backwards. I don't know why we agreed to the universe working this way, but it's the same kind of thing with like principles of manifestation that people talk about, where you have to feel the feeling and embody it before you have it in order to actually have it. And it's the same kind of thing, the sense of surrender to actually experiencing good things and enjoying your life by just realizing like, shit, I can have that right now, or I'm worthy of that right now. I accept myself exactly where I am. And honestly, if someone were to tell me at the start of my whole quote unquote healing journey and really getting into like personal development or self-improvement, whatever you want to call it, I would have gone so much further. Actually, no, it's not. Everything happened exactly as it should, but it would have helped me a lot and taken a lot of pressure off of myself if I just told myself, hey, so sick that you have a lot of things you want to work on. You have like subconscious blocks you want to get through, like things you want to change and reprogram. That's amazing. But what self-love actually means right now is to accept that where you are, exactly as you are right now, with all your, supposed imperfections and how far along you should be, all the shoulds, like that doesn't actually affect your worth. And you are just as good of a human being, whether or not you are like perfectly healed, living this like mystical, abundant life, or you are just starting to become aware of unhealthy habits in your life and like thought patterns that you want to change. Like, I thought that I had to get through this key of like awakening myself to understand my true self-worth and blah, 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 blah. But like, no, self-worth is meeting yourself exactly where you are at right now. And can you love yourself like that? Can you? And if you can't, ask yourself why. Like, genuinely sit with yourself and reflect on it. And where might these thoughts have come from? Like, where is this really mine to hold? Is the belief that I cannot accept myself exactly as I am right now? Literally just sit with it, feel it in your heart, in your mind, in your body, whatever, and ask yourself, is this belief mine? Is it? And, some people say, what the fuck do you mean connect to my body to like understand how that feels? Like, I've been there too, where it's like when someone says, oh, how does that feel in your body? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're speaking a different language. But for those of you who might resonate with this, like, it will hit. When I ask myself, like, is this belief mine? It's very clearly a no. Like, I know it comes from some external thing or some learned belief that's not actually true to the essence of my soul. But so many of us don't take the time to do this because we don't even remember to. I don't remember to all the time. And yeah, it's the most powerful catalyst to actually growing past these old mental grooves of thoughts that don't serve us, especially when it comes to self-worth. So anything that's keeping you from thinking like you are not good enough as you are, you have to be doing something in order to earn your worth, or like you're just not good enough unless XYZ, just know it's all bullshit. It is all bullshit, and it sucks that this is just kind of how our brains are wired and how they end up and how a lot of us learn to think about ourselves. But in order to actually change it, we have to become aware of it. And then once you move past that, if you can learn to just show yourself small moments of kindness, of love, of compassion, and truly unconditionally love yourself, which means in the condition that you are exactly in, like no ifs, ands, buts, shoulds, whatever, unconditional love to yourself means like you are fully accepting and loving towards yourself exactly as you are. And I promise you, even if you don't like things about yourself right now, even if you want to change some things, those things are going to change a lot faster from a place of already having a sense of self-love and acceptance, and then wanting to change yourself for the sake of your highest good and like to serve you in your highest interest, rather than trying to change yourself from this place of like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm doing all these things wrong, so therefore I need to like hate myself into changing myself. Because that is never going to stick. It is never going to stick. If you think that you need to hate yourself in order to change, let me tell you something, that is going to be the least sustainable way to actually achieve any kind of positive change in your life. Self-worth, self-love, it's something that should be inherent. But the only thing that keeps us from feeling like that is learning otherwise. Like, you already come to this world worthy of having anything, with the ability to achieve anything you want and have anything you want, and like the right to live a happy, peaceful, abundant life. The only thing that convinces you otherwise is what other people tell you and like learned experiences that aren't actually rooted in the truth of your soul. So, I hope this episode helps open your mind a bit to the concept of self-love and what it might actually mean to show yourself unconditional self-love by meeting yourself exactly where you are at and becoming okay with that. Because opening yourself up to a wider scope of acceptance is actually going to get you a lot further along than if you deem yourself like only worthy if you are meeting certain conditions, and therefore like can only change if you like shame yourself and hate yourself into change. It needs to come from a place of love. It needs to come from a place of love and compassion and kindness. So I hope this helps someone. Let me know what you guys think. Go be your most organic selves, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. If you got something out of today's episode, I would so deeply appreciate if you left a rating and or a review of the show on either Apple or Spotify to help put this podcast in more people's ears. Follow along with me on my socials, which are tagged below, and I will see you in the next one.